Talking with Beecher. Let's go.
Got my cheat sheet ready to rock.
You got cheat sheet? You need a cheat sheet for all the dates, right? So
this one right here.
So what nationality are you?
Mexican.
Mexican.
Yeah.
But you're interested in Thanksgiving.
History in general. No
general history, period, like all kinds of history?
All kinds of history, different, all time periods, all places, yeah.
But you have a wealth of knowledge on Thanksgiving.
Yes.
And so I put out when I was talking shit, of course.
Okay.
But it was about people crying about, well, I'm not celebrating Thanksgiving because the white man came over and killed the Indians. And my point was, like, you didn't know that they killed the Indians. Yeah. Like, they didn't freely take the country.
Right.
It was we're going to come take this country. Every country in the world that's been taken over has been taken over forcefully. But you're going to enlighten me on all of this stuff, right?
Oh, yeah.
On a lot of it. Okay, so where do we start?
Well, let's, I think the best place to start is maybe about 1500s or so, because it's really more disease that's coming and killing everybody more than the actual fighting and wars.
So when they came to America, what was it called before?
Well, in 1513, Ponce de Leon came from Puerto Rico to Florida. He named it Florida. So there was no name for the Americas, New World, for that particular land. He named it Florida. And that was kind of the start with the diseases. There was
when he came here, he brought disease.
Yeah, about 1513. There was a little bit before that. There was some surveyors that came to the Florida territories from Puerto Rico and the Caribbeans and things like that. But then when he landed, he gave Thanksgiving. So he's pretty much one of the first, I guess you could say, pioneers of the Thanksgiving in America. But that Thanksgiving was a little bit different than eating and socializing and things like that.
Okay, so Ponce de Leon discovered Florida.
Yeah. Well, he didn't discover, he landed on Florida. He was given the supplies and things. He landed on Florida. He gave the overall Thanksgiving celebration or honor, but it was more of a giving of thanks for landing, surviving, not eating and spending time with family members or crew or tribes or anything like that.
So where's Ponce de Leon from?
I don't know exactly where he's from, but he was, at the time, he was in the Puerto Rico area.
Okay.
He was governing and things like that. And then they gave him the ships and the supplies to go to Florida to colonize.
To colonize Florida.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then, so how did Thanksgiving become, I may be jumping in way too far here.
Yeah.
But how did Thanksgiving become Pilgrims and Columbus and all that instead of Ponce de Leon?
Okay, let's jump right into it.
Okay.
Let's go right to it. Okay, so first, just in general, let's just talk about what Thanksgiving is. It's a giving of thanks. So if for surviving, say you came across the ocean, you didn't die, you made it, you're going to give thanks to God. Now, what that thanks includes, it could be prayer. You could do like a couple days of prayer. It could be praying a couple times a day, or you can do like a fasting. With Thanksgiving, it's very similar to a lot of the autumn celebrations that people are doing too, and I think that's where the food and stuff
like equinox,
the equinox, the solstices. A lot of it was end of the year crop. So if you had an end of the year crop, then you would go ahead and celebrate that you had that final crop and that it was successful.
Oh,
and that's not just in New Worlds. That can be pretty much all over the world. It seems like where that was happening. So first, we'll knock that out of the way. So when we hear Thanksgiving, we don't think just food, eating, family, football. Back then, it was more of an actual giving of thanks.
Okay.
So more God and prayer related than food and stealing territory and lands and killings and things like
right.
that. But if we're going to jump right in, first, I just want to go ahead and throw a couple things out. Texas actually has what's considered one of the first Thanksgiving, quote unquote, where there's, you could say, a Spanish army, native tribes. There's a couple stories that is claimed within Texas. One's in 1541 with Francisco Vasquez de Conrado, and the other one is Juan de Onate. Both of them did a Thanksgiving traveling from Mexico to Texas, and they did a feast and a moment of prayer and a moment of thanks, and the natives looking on came on.
And this is where the name Thanksgiving came from.
Yeah, the giving of thanks. Different language, but yes. Now, moving forward again, just to kind of get right into the eating and everything. In 1564, the French did celebrate Thanksgiving as well in near modern day Jacksonville, Florida, and they did ask the native tribes there to go ahead and go along with them and eat and whatnot and celebrate this Thanksgiving. But to the flip side, and the bad thing to it, the Spanish came a couple weeks later and killed them all. They killed all the French that were there, and then a couple weeks later, they killed the remaining of them in St. Augustine, Florida.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
And that was a kind of, you could say, a real Thanksgiving with natives, European, white men. Yeah, that was a real one.
Everyone together.
Yeah. They were they brought in the local tribe.
Yeah, you can move it like it goes wherever.
Oh, okay.
You put it right there, no problem. Wherever you can hang out like this and put it like that if you want to. Yeah,
all right,
no
cool.
problem.
Cool. So yeah, that's where where that comes into play. So what you really see in Americas is a lot of cities and even in a lot of states that have their own Thanksgiving.
And
so they all recognize that they were the first ones.
On the same day, though.
No, the days then doesn't matter, and that's where things get confusing, because I think a lot of people say, well, there was massacres on Thanksgiving.
Right.
Whenever things happen, they celebrated Thanksgiving, or they had a day of giving thanks for whatever it may be. If it was surviving a war, getting to food crops, they would have a moment of Thanksgiving.
So we know Thanksgiving as, I don't even know what day it is. We know Thanksgiving as one day.
Yeah.
They gave Thanksgiving as many days for crops coming in or successful journeys or things like that.
Yeah. Or if you want a war, you come back to the village and they're going to give thanks. And I'll go a little bit more into some of the crazier Thanksgiving massacres coming back, and we'll get into that in a moment. But just to sum it up, kind of yes.
What about fake Thanksgiving and the myth?
We'll get it. We'll get right into that too. Yep.
Okay.
Yep. Okay. So let's see. Where were we? We're talking about Florida a little bit, and Florida is interesting. Territory too, because you had the French and you had the Spanish that were going back and forth, fighting over that land, going all the way to Louisiana and Texas, more out this area.
Okay.
So you did have that going on. Now, to go into like Jamestown and Pocahontas and John Smith, we can go right into that.
Okay.
Before I do go into that, I just want to mention in 1607, the Popham colonists in Connecticut did have a Thanksgiving as well. In their Thanksgiving, they had, it was two native groups that came on canoes, and they had some type of Thanksgiving feast there. Now, when I'm saying Thanksgiving feast, I don't want everybody to think that it's a whole group of male, women, natives, everybody eating with Europeans. It's not so much like that. It's if there is a meal, it's generally going to be male Native Americans, because those are the warriors. Those are the people that are helping within the territories and the boundaries. So usually you would see that. But back to the 1607, that I just want to mention that to throw that out there. But the Jamestown was in 1610. Really, that's one of the Thanksgivings that we look at is Jamestown. The other one is at Plymouth, where they land on Plymouth.
Plymouth Rock, right?
Right. But a lot of people think that the Plymouth Rock was before Jamestown.
Okay.
And it was actually the other way. Jamestown first, and then Plymouth Rock came later.
See, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I mean, I went to school in America. I thought it was the other way around.
Yeah, it seems like it was almost portrayed like the Plymouth Rock was the first time any European ever came from the New World to. But by then, actually, the Spanish were already in Texas, Mexico. Spanish already went to Florida at this point. And so there was a lot of other people already here. And there was fishermen in the 1500s that were going to the New World up in Maine and whatnot. So diseases were already spreading rapidly. By the time Jamestown, even Plymouth Rock even happened.
And the diseases came from the French?
Pretty much all of them.
Spanish?
Originally the Spanish first, and the French came, then the Puritans and Pilgrims came. And they're bringing all kinds of diseases with them. Yellow fever, things like that.
Yeah. That killed a lot of Native Americans.
Yeah, there's mentioned some towns villages. Some villages were completely wiped out. Wow. And I'll get into that. Actually, Jamestown was like that.
Jamestown was wiped out by disease?
The natives that were within that area.
Okay.
Before they showed up. So
Wow. This is very enlightening. How did you come across all this information? Where do you gather it from?
It's funny because as I was mentioning, it just seems like there's so many different states and little cities that claim Thanksgiving. So I go, well, where did it start from? And then you hear about massacres on Thanksgiving, and I'm like, well, when did this happen? You know, and I'm thinking it's always the fourth or third Wednesday of November that this happened, but it happened at different times throughout the year. But they would go back and give the giving of thanks for surviving, like I said, a war or fight.
So there's many Thanksgivings in the old days. Now we only celebrate one.
Yes.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. Between the 15 and 1600s, there was several different days that there was a giving of thanks in a certain colony. Yeah.
And it wasn't a specific day. It was after maybe a war, you survived or something like that. There was many Thanksgivings like that.
Yep. Well, to jump into Jamestown a little bit,
Okay.
in 1610, there was a Thanksgiving in Jamestown because what happened was in 1609, the fall of 1609, the Indians cut off, or Native Americans, they cut off trade with the villagers of Jamestown. So they became starved. They started starving. There was no access to food. There's evidence of cannibalism.
Cannibalism from who?
Who
were the cannibals?
The Jamestown, well, there's a couple different stories with it. Most recently in Jamestown, they dug up and they found a 14-year-old female body missing a lot of different body parts. The skull was beat in on the side here, like with the hammers. They were trying to get the brain. There's also reports that in Jamestown, there was an individual who killed his wife and ate her, and they killed him. They executed him.
For being a cannibal?
Yeah.
And was it a indigenous person? Was it someone that landed here? Well, who was it?
Yeah.
Spanish?
The
Pilgrims?
The Pilgrims that landed in Jamestown.
So they cut off supplies.
Yeah.
And then they became cannibals.
Yes.
Wow, that's enlightening. I did not know this.
So for the Pocahontas and our Disney, if we can get Disney pictures added to this, but the James
Disney's
Smith,
gonna sue me.
but the James Smith, for example, everyone knows the name James Smith, blonde hair guy from the Pocahontas cartoons. He was never with Pocahontas as far as physically.
Oh, wow.
Like, there was a kind of an age gap between them. She ended up marrying a gentleman named John Rolfe. We can discuss in a moment, but
Okay.
John Smith, when he arrived in Jamestown, he worked his way up over time to become a captain, and he was actually kidnapped by Pocahontas' father. And from there, they worked out some deals and whatnot. They ended up letting him go. And then down the road, Pocahontas gets kidnapped by them. Pocahontas marries John Rolfe to kind of bridge a gap between the two, and there was peace for a while. But this was later. This was after 1610. This is in the 20s. Back to 1610, 1609, the colonists of Jamestown they started to steal crops from the natives, and and there was friction between the two, and that's when they stopped the trade. And with the trading stopped, it hurt Jamestown because they didn't have another fleet come in, so their other fleet was lost down in the Caribbean, so there was no food supply. And then when they were cut off in September, they had to get to the next spring with no food.
So that's when it's for sure going to start a war. Starvation, and you have nothing to get you through the winter. Oh man.
Yeah, and that's where the cannibalism and
Wow.
starts. Yeah. So in 1610, when the ships arrived, the Jamestown settlers did a little Thanksgiving at that time because they basically were saved. But to the flip side, it also started more problems.
Right.
Yeah. Now back to a little bit about John Smith, Pocahontas, and Jamestown, and all that good stuff. One thing, the Powhatan, Pocahontas' father, he had multiple wives, and John Smith actually recorded this in his journals of the multiple wives.
Was that normal back then?
The chiefs did.
Okay.
Chiefs did have multiple wives. There's a little diagram and a drawing of it, and you can see, and he talks about it, where the multiple wives, he had, like, the chief had his favorite wives, he'd have them here, and then maybe the ones not so favorite, they'd be one level below or whatnot, but they would always be with them.
Okay.
Yeah. Now the John Radcliffe, I think I want to discuss him a little bit. John Radcliffe is the governor in the Pocahontas cartoons. Bigger guy, wears like a maroon outfit. Has a little dog with him. For all the viewers out there, if they know what I'm referring to. But what ended up happening to him, this is after John Smith left. When John Smith got injured in 1609, he went back to England. When he went back to England, that's when shit hit the fan, you can say.
Yeah.
Basically, John Radcliffe had taken over, and what happened with him, they ended up capturing him, and they skinned him with mussels and clams, shells. And
Wait, they skinned him?
Yeah, alive.
His whole body, they skinned him?
Yeah.
With clamshells?
Yes. And then they threw
That must have took a minute.
Yeah, and then they threw him in the fire, alive, yeah.
Wow, after he was skinned. Oh, wow.
Yeah, they were cutting pieces of his body up.
Where do you get this information? Because I've never heard anything near this about Thanksgiving. Where do you find this?
Well, to find it, there's different accounts. You have Bradford's account. You have John Smith's account. There are some accounts to the Thanksgiving and where this is all mentioned. Some of it was kind of lost for years. Bradford's account wasn't discovered again until the late 1800s, mid 1800s.
Wow.
So a couple hundred years, it just sat somewhere.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, and then with for example, with the cannibalism, that was just recently discovered just a couple years ago. And they started digging around, they found the body, and they had known from different references too that there was cannibalism, but no proof.
But that was proof.
That was proof.
Wow.
And if anybody wants to see it, you guys can type that in. Her name is Jan. They gave her the name Jan. And all was left is just a piece of her skull and some of her jawbone. Everything else is kind of gone.
Wow.
Yeah. Doesn't look, and if you look at the bones too, you can kind of see for yourself. It's not like this person was killed. This person was cut open for food. You could see certain.
Like
cuts.
You could tell they carved her up for food.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wonder how that tastes.
I
don't know either.
Yeah. And just one thing too about Pocahontas too. I did mention that she was kidnapped. She ended up getting married to John Rolfe. And John Rolfe, one thing about him, he was a very successful tobacco farmer. So he was one of the first pioneers of the tobacco game, if you want to say.
Right.
Yeah. But he also discussed in his journals about the first slaves coming to the New World, and that was in Jamestown.
And who were the first slaves that they brought?
They had purchased the slaves from the Dutch, but at that time the Portuguese were also
slaves.
They were pulling slaves too. Now, I mean, it's not to mention that the Spanish couldn't have been doing it too.
Right.
I mean, but yeah, when
there's slaves in many cultures all throughout history.
Yeah.
But I just wanted to know who were the first slaves that they brought here. Wow.
Yeah, the Dutch had brought them, and then that pretty much that started the whole thing, the wave. They brought about, say, 20 to 30, and then from there is the trade, that nasty trade started.
Yeah. Which is really steeped our country. Like everyone now is still thinking about the whole slave thing that happened in history, and our country was based on it. Mm-hmm. And it sucks, I mean, it just sucks, but my family wasn't part of it. So, but that's just part of history, right? Yeah.
Back to the Jamestown, some of the stuff that they were eating. And let me back up too. When this they called it the starving time in 1610, and of the 300 colonists, about 240 of them died. It's only about.
So they called it the starving time because they starved them out.
Yeah, the natives.
Right, they did that on purpose, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and they so this, like I mentioned, they were eating cannibalism. They were eating horse, dog, cats, snakes, rats, and then there's even evidence of them eating leather. Leather, yeah. There's mention of them eating. They were.
You got to be real hungry to eat leather, man.
Oh yeah.
And rats too. Oh God.
Yeah, it says put it on a stick,
I mean, yeah, maybe if you have to. I mean, if I was that hungry, sure, I'll eat it. Yeah. Wow. This is all super enlightening, man.
Yeah.
I mean, and you're just barely getting into it.
Yeah, I'm barely getting into it. Yeah, 1610. That's when, like I mentioned, with the Jamestown. when they arrived, they did that little Thanksgiving because their supplies came, and then that's what basically started the wars with them.
Oh, okay.
And the wars lasted, off and on 30 years, 30, 40 years. 1610 to 1646, off and on wars. And these wars are where they're just going and killing everybody.
Man, that's a long war.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, destroy. And not only are they killing people, but they're destroying crops. They're digging up graves, and it's going back and forth. Both of them are doing it.
Both sides are doing it.
Both sides, yeah.
Okay.
From the native side, when Jamestown and these colonies come in, they've already lost millions of people to disease.
Right.
So, by 1610, you're talking millions of people, not hundreds of thousands, millions of people. By the middle 1500s, this was already spreading.
Okay.
And
what was the main disease back then? COVID? Just kidding. No, what was the main cause? Do you know?
I believe yellow fever might have been. I'm not too sure, but I believe yellow fever. There's different ones too.
Okay. All right.
So let's see, where are we about at? We're at 1610. So let's go ahead and jump right into 1621 with Plymouth. Let's go right into it, if that's okay with you.
Yeah.
So this is the big one. This is the one everybody celebrates, or everybody gets told in school. They landed on a rock, had no food. Natives approached them, and everything was all good after that, right? Pats on the back, entertainment.
Right. It was like that's when they came together as friends, and we all got along. Yeah. But I don't really believe that's the real story. Give it up.
All right, here we go.
All right.
So let's talk a little bit about Plymouth Rock and what's going on with that. First off, the Mayflower left at the end of September in 1620. So it definitely was not set to arrive here until later in the year, which is a bad boo-boo. Anybody from the Northeast Coast, my Maine people, or Boston, all them people out there, you guys know.
Oh, it's cold.
So they ended up getting stranded in Cape Cod for a month. So they had to drop anchor. And then when they anchored there, that's when shit started happening.
Okay.
So right off the bat, they get on the land, they go dig up graves, and they're looking for crops. They steal crops.
Why did they dig up graves?
They were just looking for whatever they could get.
Oh.
Whether it's gold or food or something that maybe they could trade later on.
Oh, I see.
They see it. It's basically theirs, and this is going to upset the natives right off the bat.
For sure.
Yeah, they see this, and then they end up in Cape Cod. Then they end up in Plymouth. So when they get to Plymouth, right off the bat, the natives don't want them. They're screaming, hollering at them, telling them they're killing them right off the bat. But you have to understand, at this point, there's already been all this other stuff going on.
But they wouldn't have wanted them there anyway. They're coming to take over their land, essentially.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. With Plymouth, they ended up landing there in December. So when they land there in December, they have to build palisades. They have to build forts. They ended up building about a quarter to maybe half of what they wanted to build. There's just no time. It's December. It's freezing. Now you're fighting natives. Don't want you there either. On top of it, so that particular winter was rough for them because they couldn't actually hunt. Because if they go out to hunt, they're going to get killed. Similar to Jamestown, the events they almost mimic each other in a lot of ways. So that particular winter was kind of like Jamestown, same thing. There's a food shortage. They're eating whatever they can. There's disease and sickness going on.
How about cannibalism?
I don't know about any cannibalism there. I'm sure
I had to bring it up. Man.
Yeah. I'm sure it probably did happen there too.
Crazy.
But they did turn the Mayflower into a hospital that last half of the winter, and a lot of people don't know that either. When I say hospital, pretty much they're putting all the sick people there.
I see.
Yeah.
I see.
So
wow.
And then the other thing too is because they landed so late. They're literally a mile or so from shore. Their ship's not even close to shore, so they have to canoe or take a little boat ferry back and forth in the middle of the ice cold.
That's a mile in the ice cold is long.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So now let's go into a little bit what else happened with that.
Yeah, of course, man. No worries. We're just hanging out, talking. I'm learning about all this crazy stuff that happened. We don't get taught this in school, you know. We get taught the basics, and we don't even know how true that is anymore.
No, yeah,
because it changes with history and with, you know, my outlook is history is written by the winners.
Oh yeah.
So whatever I say, because I won the war, and when I write it, this is what happens.
Yeah.
I won. It's not written by people who, you know, whose whole tribe was killed or something like that. So I mean, I'm very interested.
Yeah, they that account would have been destroyed when they took over, right?
Right, absolutely.
Yeah, the conquerors would have just got rid of whatever.
We're going to write what we want you to believe later. Right.
So back to the Mayflower, 1620. Okay. We now it's spring of 1621. They're trying. The sun's out. They're trying to get ready for the next year, right? Well, a Native American breaks into the palisade and approaches them and asks them for a beer. And it completely just threw them for a loop. You know, here's our natives. They didn't really want us here. Now there's a guy coming in our fort asking me for a beer. Come to find out, his name was Samoset, or Somerset. Some people refer to him as, and he was actually a chief in Maine and learned English from the fishermen out there. So he approached them in Plymouth and then said he would come back with another gentleman, and this is where Squanto, where some of you guys heard of Squanto, this is where he comes into play.
Okay.
A little bit about Squanto. He was actually enslaved up in northern part, went to Europe as a slave, came back, and he knew English. So he was there to basically help with the settlers. They ended up keeping him there, and that was through the chief. The chief had mentioned that he stay there to help the Plymouth settlers. So basically, what he taught them: how to fish, how to hunt, how to plant crops. To give you an idea, he taught them to take the extra fish guts and things like that, throw them in the dirt, make the good soil. I mean, today you can go into any type of hydro store and buy fish oil, but you know they were doing that.
Oh wow! Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
And one thing that he also learned, Squanto basically had told him that his whole tribe was there and they were wiped out by disease 4 years ago. So when they landed on Plymouth, they did land in an area that was occupied but deserted. And it was so deserted that there was dead bodies laying there because there was nobody to bury the dead. It had got so bad. He was the only person that survived because he wasn't basically there. When he went back to his village was gone. Everybody had died.
So when he came back, everyone was dead from disease.
Yeah. So that was why the chief had told him to stay there, just because it was his old village anyway. One thing that's interesting to note, and this is where things kind of tie in with the Thanksgiving, with all of this kind of stuff, is one second. Massasoit. Excuse me, I had to look at the name. Sorry about that. Massasoit. So Massasoit was the chief. He was the one that put Squanto there with the Plymouth settlers.
Okay.
And one thing that he wanted was a peace treaty because there was wars among the natives at that time. So basically, his response was, we give you Squanto, he's going to help you. If you need anything, he can help you out. But then when we need help fighting, you guys got to help us. And that was kind of the treaty.
Their treaty.
Right? So then late in the fall of that year, Squanto was successful with them. They had a lot of crops. So they were going to go ahead and have this Thanksgiving feast because they had extra supplies going into the winter. So they had went out to go hunt. The native tribe heard the shooting. So they rallied up their men, went to the fort to see what the hell was going on. And when they get there, they see everybody eating, feasting. So then they invite them to come eat. So there was no pre-invitation. 90 Native Americans showed up thinking there might be war going on with these guys. We got to help them out. And that's the
Thanksgiving that we celebrate.
Yes, that's the one that that's the one everybody. So you have 90 male warriors show up to this fort, and then there's no war. You know, they see people eating, so then they're like, oh yeah, they invite them. Let's come eat with us. So so what they had to do, they had to go hunt for 5 deer. And there's a record of that they went out and hunted and came back with 5 deer. There's no record of women being involved, Native women being involved at this gathering. So,
Okay.
I mean, if you really look at it, the natives weren't invited to this meal. They show up, they heard the gunshots. They show up with their men thinking we're going to go to war. In reality, they were just feasting. They ended up feasting for about 3 days.
So it wasn't like we invited you to come here. It was they were going there to see if the war was starting.
Yeah.
And then they just started eating together and like invited them in to eat with them.
Yeah.
It's somewhat similar. I mean, I suppose.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And there's two accounts of that. Edward Winslow's account is the one that mentions that about the 90 men. They went and then the natives went out, killed the 5 deer, and came back. He does mention that they feasted for 3 days with entertainment. What type of entertainment, we don't really know, but
we can presume it was good stuff. Good feasting and drinking and entertainment for 5 days. Hey, man, I used to live in Vegas.
Hey, yeah, right. One thing too, because I had mentioned Massasoit.
Right.
So when he was the chief, everything was pretty much calm there. Not always, but everything was somewhat settled. It was when he was no longer around that things got bad. That's when the massacres the massacres and the fighting going back and forth started, and all the genocides. And
the genocide of who?
The Native American genocide started at that point, where they were just the killing, like the wiping out of the crops. Like let's continue to wipe out their crops, their supplies, so they have to move westward and maybe join another native group, or we just go ahead and kill them.
Right, and that would kill them anyway. Killing all their crops, that's their food.
Yeah. I mean, and you know, on top of it, disease is already wiping most of them out anyway. Yeah. Now to talk about another Thanksgiving. So we've mentioned a few Thanksgivings so far.
Yeah.
Another Thanksgiving, and this is the one where people say, well, there was massacres on Thanksgiving. This is really the one is in 1623. And Bradford has an account of this. There's a gentleman named Miles Standish, military minded. And there was some rumors from one native tribe that a different native tribe was going to go and kill all these the Plymouth settlers. So Standish, they grabbed a couple of their men, went to this village, killed some of the natives there. There was one that they chopped the head off in particular, put it on a stake, brought it back to the fort, and it hung there at the fort for years. But when they came back from that massacre, they did a Thanksgiving. That's one of the ones where they did let's give thanks. Not so much feasting and eating, but just to give a thanks that we all came back and we survived this little mini war.
That little massacre.
Yes, and they had the head on the stake. So there's that particular one. And most recently, they believe they found the bodies of those two natives because they did find skeletons without heads, 2 skeleton remains without heads in that little area. And that's something for further reading if any of you guys want to go out there and
Wow. Okay.
So that is out there. Another thing too with that, and I want to bring up one other incident like that where there was killings involved. It was 1637. It was a Connecticut colonist. They did a Thanksgiving feast after killing hundreds. They actually had there was another group of Native Americans with this group, with the Connecticut settlers, and they wiped out these natives. They came back, had another feast. That's another one. So you see those two are really the main ones where there was this massacring of natives. They came back and had some type of feast or giving of thanks.
So why do we celebrate the Thanksgiving that we celebrate now then? I know this is probably going way too far, and
it's a good question. And a lot of it started. There was a couple things. There was a poem by Longfellow, and when he talked about actually Miles Standish, the guy that we were just mentioning that put a head on a stake. There's a little love triangle story with him being involved, and that story got popular in the 1800s. And then there's a couple other stories. Brad Bird's account was dug up in the 1800s, and that's what started the whole feasting of the Thanksgiving. And
wow.
And there was magazines were pushing menus, Thanksgiving menus, things.
Of course, of course.
And that was more in about the middle of the 1800s, towards the end of 1800s. So by the turn of the century, by 1900s, everybody knew the fake Pilgrim story. It already had blown up. because people were doing this for years.
And the fake pilgrim story.
Yeah. That's more of the Plymouth Rock one.
Oh, so that's how it started.
Yeah.
So they started it so they could calm down war, or so they could make themselves look better?
You're saying the Thanksgiving? Why was it?
I mean, why they started the story of Thanksgiving in the Plymouth Rock?
Well, my opinion,
Yeah,
is just to try to make the story look good while we're here, or say not me, but say the European, why they came here and took everything over. It doesn't sound as bad because you're not bringing up any disease. This disease killed them. Disease killed them more than anything.
Okay.
I mean, yeah, there's fighting, there's all the executions and crazy stuff, but really diseases killed them more than anything. Probably wiped out. If I had to take a guess, probably 80% were wiped out by just the diseases, and that was before 1600. By the 1600s, you had these tribes that were depleted, and a lot of them had to join other tribes because they were trying to survive. To cry because they were, if they're close to the coast, maybe their crops got destroyed, or maybe fighting with the pilgrims or other settlers. But the sorry, no, I don't know. I
Did
heard
you
like
hear something?
Yeah, I heard like a weird echo on my end.
Ghosts.
Yeah.
It's Indian ghosts.
Yeah. We're talking
shit about Thanksgiving.
It's too close.
No, there's a mosquito in here. It is Texas. They're big. They're the size of hummingbirds.
Nice. Yeah. we don't have them back. We don't have them right now back up north.
Yeah.
But back to this Massasoit. When he was gone, once he was gone, that's when things really got bad, and that's when the Indian Wars started.
Because he was like a liaison between them.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, and his son, during the wars, his son was they call him Metacomet, and the wars with him, they refer to it as King Philip's War, 1675 through 1678. This particular war, this is when things got real out of hand, and when they killed him, they cut up his body into several pieces, and they sent it to different areas within the Boston, Massachusetts area as a trophy. This guy's body was completely just mutilated and spread out throughout the whole North England.
Man, they were brutal back then, huh?
But to the flip side, his father was the one that helped the Plymouth settlers come in. He gave them Squanto, all that. And then later on, his son was completely just mutilated.
What?
Yeah.
Wow. This is part of history that we don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, most of this is. Wow. Okay.
Yeah. They chopped his body up, pieces and pieces.
And sent it for trophies.
Yeah. So it was like somebody had a hand. I forgot exactly where his body parts ended up, but like his hand ended up one spot, his other hand ended up somewhere way further. Yeah. Now that's kind of all the history with Jamestown, Plymouth, Native Americans, the eating, the massacre. Those two stories were pretty much the main ones. The Jamestown and Plymouth. Jamestown, more the fantasy with the Pocahontas and that kind of stuff, but the actual Thanksgiving, the fake feast, that comes from more of the Plymouth, the Plymouth settlers. Around the same time period, early 1600s, just a couple years apart.
And disease killed most. So it wasn't really a war that killed most Indians. Yeah. It was disease.
Yeah.
But brought over by Europeans and Spanish.
Yeah. You can say French, Dutch. Yeah, you can say all of them.
Dutch.
Yeah.
That's European, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow, this is super enlightening.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So that pretty much wraps that all up as far as that. Now, in U.S. history, now you were asking earlier, how do we even come up to celebrate this? Where does it all come from? All that kind of stuff. We'll get into that kind of right now.
Okay.
Just to throw in a couple things too, just for the viewers. In 1705 was the first canceled or postponed Thanksgiving, and that was in Connecticut, and it was because of a food shortage. Thanksgiving early on, it caught on more in New England, in the northern states rather than the southern states. And me personally, I always thought like southern hospitality, southern, I thought maybe it would come from the south, but no, the south, it caught on later. It was the north. It was in the north where it caught on. In the 1700s, George Washington there was a couple things where just a couple times he did it before the U.S. Constitution, before America, back when they were the Continental Congress. He had proclaimed the first National Thanksgiving Day for them. At that time, that was 1784. Then in 1789, they did it again to celebrate Thanksgiving, and that was just to honor the Constitution.
Okay. And they didn't have those on specific days like we do now?
The one in 1777 was December 18th, and 1789 was on October 3rd.
Okay.
A few later presidents after Washington, they also declared it Thanksgiving, but not like in the sense of like today, more of like a giving of thanks. New York declared the first Thanksgiving as far as states. That was 1817. 1863 was when Abraham Lincoln declared it as well. It became a holiday right after that with the Ulysses Grant.
It was a national holiday.
Yeah.
Wow.
And then from there, that was 1870. Ulysses Grant, he signed it into law, and I believe there was 4 other holidays at that particular time that he signed into law. Then in 1939 through 1941, things got a little goofy with Thanksgiving, and it became known as what's called Franksgiving. And
wait! I've never heard this story. Why?
Well, this is what happened with the Great Depression going on and whatnot. They were trying to spike up sales, kind of like now, and Franklin D. Roosevelt switched it to the third Wednesday, or the third Thursday rather than the fourth Thursday. And this went on for a couple years, and it really just confused the hell out of everybody. Because some states did it, some states didn't, some states did both. So if you want to see it, I do have a map of that on my website, Hav's World. You could see the map of the U.S. broken
what's
down.
What's your website?
Hav's World.
Spell it.
JAVZWORLD.com. Yeah, and you can see there's a map of it, and you can see that some states did both because they really just didn't know. It's not like now with social media, you can change a date of a holiday and then everybody has it.
Yeah.
Back and then some people back there probably like, no, we're not doing that. We're sticking to
the old school.
Yeah, and it was off for sales. Kind of like now, I think now they're saying that the Black Fridays are going to start like second week of November now rather than third because of COVID and this, and they're just they're hiking up sales.
Yeah, I mean a lot of holidays are put at times of year that aren't in the history books for sales.
Yeah,
including Christmas.
Oh yeah,
yeah. So, but we're talking about Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
Okay. So they changed it to a national holiday, and the third Thursday of November.
Yeah.
In what year was it?
This was 39. And then
1939.
And by 42, it was already switched back. They just said, all right, we're going to make it the fourth Thursday. No more of this confusion stuff. Like the last 3 years, everybody don't know what the hell to do. So they're putting it back. And that's pretty much the U.S. history with Thanksgiving. I'm surprised they haven't did like a name change or maybe try to change the date since then. But
why would they change the name?
Yeah.
Why?
I think maybe because of all the killings involved of giving thanks. They diluted the Thanksgiving. Before you land, like we talked about, you land somewhere, you give thanks for living or surviving. Now they're giving thanks for killing and staying alive while they just went out massacred and killed a whole, set fire to a fort, and you burned not only the men and women, you're killing children, everybody.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And so, but that's why it's diluted though. So we don't hear all of this stuff in schools and when we're kids, and that's why it's diluted nowadays. Am I right?
Yeah. I think so.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's a lot to swallow because there's so much time periods and dates, and you have so many states saying no, Thanksgiving was we own Thanksgiving, not you. I mean, And this,
but from what I've learned today is Thanksgiving was on several different dates. Depending, there was you were giving thanks for a good crop. You're giving thanks for a good journey, successful journey, or a successful massacre. It could be Thanksgiving, right? Mm-hmm. But it all ended in the fourth Thursday of November. Okay. All right.
Now, just to talk a little bit about more, we can talk about football since you being in Texas, I being in
Football's
Michigan.
big, yeah.
Thanksgiving, it's like Dallas Cowboys win, Detroit Lions get their ass kicked. I mean, it's a lot of all the football fans. I know that being from Detroit, it's a rough Thanksgiving every year. I think you guys had a couple rough ones over here too, but one thing that's always interesting with the NFL, first, football has been played on Thanksgiving for over 130 years at this point.
Wait, really?
Yeah,
Like
there has been over 1,000 college football games on Thanksgiving. Now we don't think so much of it now because since about the 50s it tapered off. You know, kids go home for Thanksgiving break.
Yeah.
But in the 1900s to 1950s, all the big games were on the weekend. I mean, not the weekend, on Thanksgiving Day or that weekend. You know, some of them will move it to the weekend or that day. NFL have been doing it since the early 1900s, 1920s, 1930s. Lions have been playing on Thanksgiving. Since 1934.
I was going to say before I was born for sure because I used to watch it when I was a kid. Yeah.
And Cowboys, 1966, outside of a couple years, they've been doing it too. And then, recently they added a third game because there's more money involved. And why I bring this up, everybody's asking what the hell's football got to do with Thanksgiving. And
it's on Thanksgiving.
It is on Thanksgiving. Yeah. It is. But one thing in particular is the Washington Redskins.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that. What you think about the Redskins, and then they changed the name of. I don't really do team sports too much, but of the Reds, I think.
I think they're just called the state, or not the state. I think they're just called Washington, or I'm not sure exactly how they're worded.
Oh, they changed the name of the football team too?
Yeah, I think they're called
I
think they're called just Washington now. They took the logos off, but to me it looks like when you remove a college logo and put a college letter. So, for example, Michigan State, they took the Spartan off their helmet. They put a big S. They're wearing the same colors, the same thing. So it's like the Redskins. You have the same color. You just took the logo out, but it's still the same. To me, it's got the same thing. You got the colors are the same. The uniforms are basically the same. You just put a W on the helmet or whatnot.
I agree. I really think, I'm a little older. I think that people get offended about stupid shit too much.
Oh, yeah.
Like when I was a kid, I grew up in Hawaii. They don't like white people. It's common. That's just how it is. And when you went home and crying about something, they were like, do you care what that kid thinks? No. Well, then fuck that kid. Yeah. Who cares? Go on. Like everyone's so worried about what everyone else thinks nowadays. Well, you can't call them the Redskins. That's racist. I mean, it's not. It could be, but who cares what they think? I mean, who cares? Like, just go on. It's a game. Anyways, go ahead.
No, I mean, there's so many native teams too. Where do you even start? Do you just remove one and keep the other 10, 15? Every sport, it seems like there's a native team. But I bring it up for this reason. For this reason only, Dallas is known as America's team. That's America's team, and the team, one of the teams that's in their division is the Washington Redskins or Washington. So it's going to come up. They have to play them a couple times a year. But why does the NFL put them on Thanksgiving all the time? I have no clue. So, for example,
because it's Cowboys versus Indians,
right?
Like the classic Cowboys versus Indians, right?
And here's the interesting part about it is you get about 20 to 30 million viewers watching this every year. It's a top 25 broadcast of Thanksgiving games, and you're showing America's team beating Indians. Now I know it's a little far fetched, but I'm saying it's the Cowboys.
That could be declared racist, yes.
And this is and this is 4 out of the last 5 years. I mean, you can't pick another opponent to schedule. Why is the Redskins playing 4 out of the last 5 years on Thanksgiving? They don't have the Thanksgiving game. That's the Cowboys and Lions.
Yeah, it's Cowboys and Lions, right? But it's. Maybe they were thinking, Thanksgiving, Indians and Cowboys or settlers getting together. Yeah. But really fighting. I don't know.
Not much. Not much of a fight because the Cowboys usually pound them.
Yeah.
Beat them pretty good. But it's just something I wanted to throw that out there too, is that you have the millions of viewers. I mean, I don't look at it too much. Like you say, it's just a team name, things like that. I mean, change it, or
now,
whatnot.
Did the viewership go up when it was Dallas versus the Redskins or versus Detroit?
Well, that's a good question. Typically, the Cowboys they get more viewers because it's an afternoon game. The Lions, it's usually they get the noon game.
Right.
They're done by 3:00. Nobody wants to watch them anyway. but with
I used to watch Barry Sanders, bro.
Oh yeah,
dude,
legend.
that guy was amazing.
Yeah, legend. Dude.
All right, let's go. We're getting off subject.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. Well, Barry though, man.
Oh, but
just go back
I
a little
met
bit.
Barry Sanders.
Really?
So I used to live in Oklahoma City.
Okay.
And I went into a bar to have a beer, and I'm sitting at the bar, and there's a guy sitting right here, and I'm drinking a beer, and I'm looking at him, and he's like kind of turning his head. I go, "Hey man, are you Barry Sanders?" And he's like, "Shh." I'm like, "Yeah, you're Barry Sanders. What are you doing?" I guess he went to college, and I didn't know. I don't know that much about football. And I was like, wow, I met Barry Sanders. It was amazing.
That's cool.
This is before cell phone pictures, or else I would have a selfie with him or something, you know? But I met him.
Back when the autograph was more wanted than the selfie.
Yeah, and I didn't want to bother him for an autograph or nothing. I just said, hi, cool. I watch you all the time. Pretty amazing in the stuff you do. And that's it. That's
cool. He sounds like that's good. It's good to hear he's a good guy.
Yeah, super nice guy.
Yeah, it's good to hear. Good to hear. With the back to the Redskins, real quick, they did change their name like we talked about. So I said 4 out of the last 5 years, they're playing, but technically the Redskins ain't playing this year, even though Team Washington will be playing this year on Thanksgiving.
Oh, is that the name of the Washington Redskins now?
I think I think so. Oh. I'm not.
I don't really watch too many team sports anymore. I watch fighting. That's what I'm into. That's what I do.
Yeah.
But yeah, I didn't know. I think that all of this names offending people is going too far, man. Yeah. It's going to become a crime soon to call somebody a name, and it's just something mean. If you think it's racist, then it's racist. Yeah. If you don't, then it's not. It's all right. Whatever. Who cares what that guy thinks, later. All right.
Well, one thing I wanted to bring up, because you had mentioned were more people watching the Cowboys later. But one thing was interesting. This was back in 2017. The Redskins played the Giants. So they actually brought the Redskins in to play on the third game when they didn't even play the Cowboys. They decided, all right, we were gonna bring in 2 teams for that third Thanksgiving game. Well, let's bring in the Redskins. So they could have maybe brought different teams, but they bring them. But what was interesting is in that particular game, Vernon Davis was kneeing for the anthem, and everybody was making an issue about this. Was when kneeling at the time,
and this was in 2017. I don't remember that.
Yeah,
really.
He kneeled during this Thanksgiving game, and there was all kind of there was a lot of protesters outside of the city or outside of the stadium protesting the Native American name, but it got completely overshadowed by the Davis kneeling.
And why was he kneeling?
He was kneeling the national anthem.
But was there a reason for him to kneel, like these other guys are doing now?
Yeah, I'm not too sure. Okay. But it's just the thought that you have the protesters outside protesting the name, but nobody's even given any thought to that. They're just giving thought to the kneeling during the anthem.
Oh wow!
Yeah,
they've been protesting that name since 2017.
Maybe even longer. Yeah,
really?
I think so.
Because they dub it racist.
I think so. Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
All of this is enlightening. I didn't know anything about this.
Yeah.
Wow. So you study a bunch of history then, huh? History.
I basically try to look for stuff that's lost history or maybe misguided or maybe there's more to it.
So
I go and search for it.
When you find something that is different in history, like how do you know that those accounts are true? And I don't really believe the stuff that I believe it's watered down for schools because we're kids.
Yeah.
But how do you know that that's true? Do you have proof behind these stories?
Well, you look for first-hand accounts, and a lot of times first-hand accounts could be bullshit, like you're kind of saying, someone.
You don't know if the guy wrote it or not,
right,
but you think it's a first-hand account, right? Okay.
Yeah. So sometimes, or someone can work something up, so it's really not as big as what they're saying. So I look at accounts for that, and then I look at any type of physical evidence. Was there anything destroyed? Is there anything left over of it? And then I'll look at maybe secondhand stories, if there's stories that were passed down.
So do the secondhand stories, are they similar to the firsthand accounts, and that's how they become more legitimate to you?
Yeah. And if they find bodies and things like that,
They find chopped up bodies.
Yeah, then it makes the story pretty credible at that point. Kind of like the Jamestown situation. Some of Jamestown probably is fabricated a little bit. There's a story of John Smith being saved by Pocahontas. That's when he was captured. They were going to kill him, and she ran and threw her body on top of him. Now that story is probably fabricated. I mean, who knows? He wrote that. But something like that, yeah, that probably could have been fabricated. But other stories, I really look at everything at the big picture of it, and yeah, like there could be evidence that's just maybe fake, not right, or just completely thrown off. But then you look at other things that are going on in that area. That's what I try to look at that too.
Okay.
So, for example, in Jamestown, we know that there was other diseases in north because of the Maine fishermen that were coming in. They actually had that map for a long time, for a couple of years already, years. So I look at that. So the disease was there.
Right. And that was the biggest factor of killing Native Americans was disease.
Yeah.
Not like pilgrims killing.
No.
That's what we call them, right? Pilgrims.
Yeah. I was trying to think like, I mean, there's like we call them the settlers, we call them Puritans, pilgrims,
right.
Separatists. What do we call them exactly?
Right.
There's different groups of them too.
Right. There's different groups from different countries as well. Am I right?
Yeah. And that's another thing was the settlers in Plymouth. When I had mentioned they got stuck in Cape Cod there, they couldn't even come. They technically have the option of going south. But if you go south, you're going in Spanish territory, and now you have the chance of getting killed by the Spanish. And they feared the Spanish more than the Native Americans.
I see.
Yeah.
So they went west.
Yeah, they went
instead of
south. They just didn't go. They didn't travel south, and they you could go you could go Maryland or the Carolinas or something like that. They were like, no, we're gonna go. We're just gonna go west. Yeah.
Okay.
So
I didn't know any of this.
Yeah.
That's crazy. How long have you been studying about, I mean, not just about Thanksgiving, but history? How long have you been studying about
my whole life I have a whole interest to it.
Yeah.
In my 20s, it was more of like family history stuff. And when you're doing family history, like you're saying, Dad,
you did like genealogy type.
Yeah, the
thing?
genealogy,
Okay.
going through old Mexico records.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, hundreds of years.
They have records in Mexico?
Yeah.
I've been to Mexico.
Okay.
Like
All
a
right.
bunch of times.
All right. Let's say the good towns, or party a little bit.
Good times, and then like border towns are not so nice.
Yeah.
But I mean, deeper into Mexico, super nice, super
Okay.
fun, great. Great times. Yeah.
Cool. Good.
But you went through your genealogy, and that's how you started finding this stuff.
Yeah. The for Mexico, for example, well, let me back up a little bit.
Okay.
To have access to all these documents, the Mormons actually went and took pictures of every single document. And
Mormons have I'm sorry to interrupt you. Mormons have the most detailed genealogical history, I think.
Yeah.
Am I right in saying that
Oh, yeah.
statement?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, they pretty much take everybody's genealogy.
Yeah.
So they took a picture of every page of every book they have for the Mexico records. Now, to back up a little bit about the records, civil records didn't start in Mexico until 1860. So a civil record, that could be a civil birth, a civil marriage, a civil death record. That comes from the actual town itself. Before 1860, you're looking at church records, church baptism records, confirmation.
Was it, well, Mexico is Catholic.
Yeah.
Am I right?
Yeah.
And so it wasn't Mormon based. So how did they get those documents?
In the 80s, they went and took pictures of every book. And then they had it available on microfilm. So when I started family history, you actually had to order the microfilm.
And then you looked at it in one of those little things with the big,
Yeah.
I remember that a long time ago.
Yeah. And then FamilySearch.org, they made it for free.
Oh,
and
wow.
then I went on there
So FamilySearch.org, anybody can go on there and search their genealogy?
yeah, I mean, unless they changed it recently, yes.
Oh, all right.
Yeah, you can pull it up. It can, and even when you're looking at those records, there's a lot of errors.
Yeah.
A lot of stuff's not true. I mean, I've seen where, for example, two people have kids, they're the same age, but then when kid 8 or kid 7's born, they're all of a sudden, it says they're 6 years apart, the parents. To make the woman look a little bit younger, giving birth maybe or so. But so you see a lot of it. So you got to be cautious of that. And that kind of taught me to investigate everything. So in this case, like, so after 1860, you have in Mexico, you have a civil birth record, you have a church baptism record, then you have a church marriage record, you have a civil marriage record, you have a civil death record, and you have a church death record. So you can have 6 documents on one person.
So are all those documents, do they all match?
Some cases, no. in some cases,
he died Tuesday, no Thursday, no last year. Yeah. That's why it's hard to tell.
Mm-hmm.
Like in my mind, that's why it's hard to tell. Which is why I asked you, how do you know that this stuff that you're telling me, that this research that you've done is true?
Yeah.
I mean, because man, history is falsified a lot.
And his story. Oh,
His story. Oh, you go deep on me there. Okay.
Yeah. His story, you know, like we meant, you talked earlier, the conquerors make the history.
It's true. It's the winners. Yeah. History is written by winners.
Yep.
Like if you lost the war, you're not writing history because you lost the war, you know? Yeah.
And then you have to make it why you went into the war.
Right.
you wanted, but we had good intentions of going there.
Yeah. So let me ask you this. Why do people get mad nowadays? And I'm on social media, which I wish I wasn't. And social media is really built to create engagement. Yeah. So what creates it more engagement than anything else is arguments. So it's going to show you things that you don't disagree with. But anyways, why does everyone get so mad? I'm not celebrating Thanksgiving nowadays. Why do they do that? Do you celebrate Thanksgiving? I
mean, by celebrating it, I'm with my family.
Right.
We're eating, spending time. We're eating a meal that's beyond big, and we're watching our lovable lions get declawed, if you want to say. But I think with a lot of the individuals and a lot of people that are protesting, a lot of them maybe have some type of native in them, maybe a grandparent or a parent. And I think that's where I normally see it. Someone who's maybe some type of Native American in some way, they might feel like that. Don't get me wrong, there's other people too, but I think for the most part, someone who maybe has Native background.
I have some Native American friends. I'm going to ask them too.
Yeah.
But the reason that I ask you that is you know more about Thanksgiving than probably anyone I've ever met.
Oh, wow.
So,
thank you.
I asked you if you celebrated it because there's people that don't know shit. They're just like, I'm not celebrating it because they killed the Indians. Well, yeah, we know that.
Yeah, you'll see that meme for sure. You definitely see that one where it's like, oh, there was a killing, and that's the one where they're really referring to Miles Standish. That's the one where he went, they did the massacre, and there's that one, and then the other one with the with Mason that I talked about earlier, and his statue was actually just removed this past March, and he was the I'm trying to find my timeline here. Here it is. So he was part of the killings in 1637 Connecticut colonists, and these Connecticut colonists did have natives, and there's a picture drawing of it. You can see it. So you guys out there, if you want to see what it looked like, the massacre, they had the native tribe that that were rivals. They had them positioned around the palisade, and then behind them were the colonists with the guns. So you had arrows first, then you had the guns. So if anybody was coming out of this burning fort that they set on fire, they were just killing them right there. And there's only one way in and one way out.
There's no survivors there.
No. And
wow.
Native American forts, they don't have a doorway like we would think walking into a door. It's kind of like a circular shape like this. And at the entrance, you'll have the door that it's real thin in a circular shape, but it's real thin. And they have to crawl in there, and then they can throw sticks and different bushes to stop anybody from coming in, but they don't have an actual door that opens where you can bring in a couch.
Right.
Yeah. No, they don't have that. All the forts are pretty much the same. It's a circle. It's like a circle, and it's on the sides. But that picture's there. You can see it. I do believe that account in particular, just because of how gruesome the description is, if they would have maybe toned down a little bit if they were thinking somebody was going to read this hundreds of years later.
But they didn't.
No.
Good. Well, that's
so
you want to see the truth, you know?
Oh yeah.
I mean, maybe not when you're a kid, you know, that's why I think they watered it down in history's written by winners too, in schools, but all of this, I knew none of this.
Yeah.
I knew none of any of this happened, you know?
And I think there's really no skateboarding around or skating around the disease part. And I think that's the part that people just think, well, there's wars and killings, but they don't actually think of the numbers that are involved here. I mean, you're talking millions of people that were killed.
By disease.
Not even fighting, just the overall disease.
So let me ask you this. Are you telling me that the settlers, or whatever we're calling them, pilgrims or whatever, that came here from many different European countries, didn't mass genocide them on purpose? It was disease.
Well, we could say on purpose towards the later 1600s.
Totally on purpose. Like, we're going to genocide this whole land and make it ours.
Yeah.
They didn't do that on purpose, like by murder.
No. There was bullying and things. You do see that, like the bullying, because they kidnap them, or they'll go and try to get the gold. Where's the gold? That's a lot of what they were even out there for, was resources. So they're looking for resources. But overall, in general, the disease was wiping them out.
And back in the day, that's normal. Back in those days, it's normal. Like wherever, anywhere in the world, that was normal.
Yeah. You're looking for the fountain of youth or gold resources,
Yes.
like we are today. We're looking
Ponce
for
de Leon, right?
Yeah.
Fountain of youth. You're looking for the fountain of youth, right?
Yeah. But
I wish you'd find it and send it over this way. I'm getting old here.
I could use a couple bottles myself, right?
I mean, at least some of it. So football and the Washington Redskins are no more the Washington Redskins.
No, I don't know what they're going to do. I don't follow NFL too much. I just know they're called like Team Washington, or it just reminded me of, like I mentioned, of a college team for like that 1 year. They're going to take the logo off their helmet and put a letter. And then the next, they got the same colors. It's the same. Everything's the same.
Yeah. Because people get offended now at everything.
Yeah. But the Redskins, well, I should say Thanksgiving in general. In order for this holiday, I think, to change or to anything, you're going to need a lot of people to do it. You'll need more.
Who wants it to change? Do you want it to change? Do a lot of people want it to change?
I don't know. Based off of some of the social media that we see right around this time of the year, but is it making a big wave, a big splash? I don't think so.
As long as we know we're getting some of this truth that you're telling us, it's okay to celebrate. It was giving thanks for not for a massacre.
No, except for there's a few instances that there was, but for the most part, it's always some just giving thanks of making the journey across the land.
So the story I got when I was a kid, I'm too old to remember really, but there was a huge war and they finally made up. And then when the Native Americans and the Pilgrims made up, it was Thanksgiving.
Yeah. That you can relate that to Plymouth, just because that first year they didn't have the supplies. And that's when the next year they were greeted by the native, because the natives didn't want them there. So when they landed on Plymouth, they were greeted with screams and roars.
Of course. I mean, they're coming to invade our land, right? Yeah. And bring disease. The
disease had wiped out from Maine all the way to Plymouth. So to give you an idea, there was some fishermen, and I don't know exactly where, but Maine all the way to Plymouth was diseases. And that's where we mentioned the tribe, the Patuxet, they were completely wiped out.
Wow.
Yeah.
And how many tribes now are wiped out forever because of, there's no telling?
Yeah.
Really?
I mean, a lot of the tribes, you had your individual tribes, but they were still under one umbrella. Right. You're two big nations, and then you got your several tribes, a couple hundred people in each tribe in some areas. And then that whole area is gone overnight.
So was a tribe like in Scotland, they have clans. A clan is a family. It's really your name is your clan. So was a tribe like a family, and there's a bunch of little families and then one big tribe?
You see multiple families.
In one tribe?
In one little tribe, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And then from there, they'll marry off into a different tribe or whatnot. But yeah, you see maybe a couple hundred people. Now, are they all related? Probably, maybe a half and half or quarter. You got, like you're saying, just big families. They're branched off.
Okay.
Yeah.
So let me ask you this. What else do you think that everyone should know about this holiday that's coming up?
Besides the massacres, genocide,
Right.
the football stuff that we touched on a little bit, I think the other thing too is just to know that Thanksgiving is more of a fall harvest celebration. It's not so much that the solstice or the sun. It's the one that's right before it, and the Egyptians celebrated too, some similar with crops, and I think I'm not sure exactly what crop, but there's crops involved
It's
where they
giving thanks for the crop.
end of the year, your end of the year surplus.
Okay. So it's not really Indians and settlers getting along. It's a giving thanks for the crops that we're going to get.
Yeah, so we know that this winter won't be like the last winter.
All right.
Yeah, that's kind of.
So now it's where I talk shit. Now all you guys that are complaining about this, that's what Thanksgiving is about. Stop complaining and bring me some pie.
Oh, that's great.
I don't really do a whole lot of holidays myself,
Okay.
but this is really interesting, man. I learned a lot about things that I probably would have never known in my lifetime. That's awesome, man. That's awesome.
Oh, I appreciate it. Thank you.
What else
Thank
do you study, like history-wise?
Right now, I'm looking. I'm into a lot of Native American earthworks right now.
Oh, right.
So I'm looking, discovering certain things I think I came across. I'm still working on some stuff with it. But earthworks, a lot of earthworks are designed to align with the stars, and I didn't know this growing up.
So you mean the what they put on the ground?
Yeah.
That's what you call earthworks?
Yeah. So like they might make an Indian burial mound. Or to give you an example, there's in Ohio, there's the Serpent Mound. Serpent Mound is shaped like a snake in the ground.
Yes.
And where it turns, it lines up with the solstices and the equinoxes throughout the year.
Wow.
So I've been more into that kind of stuff with the Native Americans and trying to find some old earthworks, or they're definitely a lot of geometry involved with them. And that really intrigues
And do you
me.
think that they did that for the crops and not for astrology, like people think so?
That's probably astrology, yeah, or time. It's a calendar. They can, a calendar
Or
too.
time.
They can, they know when to plant, when to move, or when to prepare.
When to prepare for the seasons.
Yeah, another thing too that I'm interested in, and if anybody else wants to check this out, the pictographs. There's pictographs out in.
What's a pictograph?
Well, pictographs is kind of like a hieroglyph kind of.
Okay.
So, drawings on the wall.
Okay.
Natives would do it in the wall, on the wall art wall. I'm getting the words a little ahead of myself here, but they're called cup and channel glyphs. If you guys have time, take a look at it. It's out there in Utah and Arizona. To sum it up, it's basically picture a circle with a line straight through it, and it looks like it's a navigational mark. And they're all on different rocks, stones, all throughout the desert. And they think that it aligns with maybe that's the nearest town, nearest watermark. Maybe
they
it's
don't
sacred.
know what they made them for. Though.
No,
They don't know for a fact.
There's hundreds that are out there.
Wow, that's interesting.
Yeah.
There's hundreds out there in deserts.
They're mostly in Utah, in Arizona, Nevada area a little bit too. They're out there in that little area. I believe they might have found a couple in California.
Maybe it was a path to California.
Yeah.
But now it's a path to get out of California.
Yeah.
Wow, man. This is super interesting. So I always do this. I have a bunch of questions, just a group of questions that I ask people.
Yeah.
And I tailor them to each person that comes on my podcast. And number one is, what's your favorite thing about Thanksgiving? Your favorite thing?
Seeing family.
Yeah. And do you give thanks for things on Thanksgiving?
It's funny. I was thinking about it. I believe there was one time where I could remember a family prayer on Thanksgiving, but but other side, no. I mean, we're so worried about our football squares and Lions and Cowboys coming on next, and you eat and we don't think about the giving of thanks and really appreciating the moments, I guess, at that time. But yeah, just for me, that's what I look forward to. Just being with my family, eating, and just kind of relax and chilling.
Yeah, and Thanksgiving is, you're supposed to give thanks, so let's give thanks to our family when we're there. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah,
I agree with that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So, what's your least favorite thing about Thanksgiving?
all the drama now that we're hearing, and let's change it.
Ding, we have a winner. Yes.
Yeah. It's like I'm not celebrating Thanksgiving, but I'll be with my family. You know, that kind of stuff you hear from everybody.
Yes.
And it's coming up now. I mean, a couple of weeks, we're going to be seeing this every time you go.
It's going to be social media packed with, F Thanksgiving. Yes. Yeah.
So for all yous out there, remember the 2 dates that are very important when it comes to the massacring and all that.
What are the dates again?
These the two instances. There was the 1637 with the Connecticut colonists, and then the other one that you guys would want to look at. Give me 1 second.
Wasn't it like, was it 1610?
Yeah, 1610. Yeah, 16. Yep, here it is. So 1610, 1637. Those are definitely the ones you
the massacre
check
ones.
out. Yeah.
Yes. That's
16.
crazy.
The one that I think really sticks out though is that the 1637 one, just because there was a fort that they literally just burned with 300 so people.
And then if people came out, they had bows and arrows. If they got past them, they had guns.
Yeah, they were ready.
They were ready for no one to survive that.
Yeah.
Back in those days, they were brutal, man.
Yeah, the military warfare is the one thing I think researching this has just been so interesting, because you think, okay, they just go and whack somebody, right? You go kill somebody. It's the end of the day. No, it's like there's torture involved. Like we're gonna make this, but we're gonna cut all their skin off, then throw them in a fire. We're gonna hang them
with clam shells. You know how long that would have taken to cut somebody's skin off with clam shells, dude?
Yeah.
God. I went to I was in Holland, in Amsterdam.
Okay.
And I went to a torture museum. I always wanted to be around when there were knights in armor and stuff like that. After I went to the torture museum, I don't know if I wanted to be around back then.
Yeah. The guillotine and some other thing?
That's nothing, dude. The guillotine is very sanitary, very awesome compared to what they did. They hung people by their feet upside down and used a tree saw, and cut them from the pelvis down. So not from the head to where you die, from right here down.
It's like there's a lot of suffering before you actually go into shock and die. It seems like there's
I sat on a chair that had spikes on it, and you're bolted to it. But that's not the only part. The chair was metal, and they put fire underneath it.
Holy shit.
Yeah. They had a spike. It looked like one of those old studs, like on belts. And they sat people's asshole on top of it.
Ooh.
And they tied their legs up. And it took them 9 days for that thing to go inside them and die from it.
Slow torture. It's conquistador deaths.
It was crazy. But that's what I'm saying is we're not, there was murders and stuff back then, but not like that,
Yeah, this is and then the other thing too is they want the body. So say they killed somebody, they didn't get the body, they might come back and dig up that grave later. And that's both sides.
Why do they want the body?
I don't know if that's just a pilgrim thing or what, but
what did they do with it?
They would place it at the top of their fort, put the head. So for the Miles Standish, that particular one where he came back, on the stake, he placed that head at the top of the fort, and it was there for years. Reported it was there for years until
they knew was that a big time person that was on that top, and that's why they did it.
Yeah, the other Native Americans were like at awe and feared at the same time. Like their rivals, they're looking like, damn. We turn against these guys. Look what's going to happen.
Yeah.
So other natives would come in the fort, and that's the first thing they would see.
Wow.
An enemy from a different tribe's head just up there.
Yeah, from a very powerful tribe to where they're like, okay, we really don't want to mess with these guys.
Yeah.
So they did that on purpose.
Yeah, and then in one thing that definitely I've read about a lot too is the killings of just a lot of innocent people. Kids, women, just there's this Standish guy too. Like I was mentioning, there was a story of him. They threw 2 kids and they kidnapped, or they didn't kidnap, they captured, threw the 2 kids in the river, shot them dead, took the mom in town, and then they just killed her in front of everybody. So you do see that kind of like a 1800s lynching, but just a murdering, hanging type thing.
Right.
Yeah.
It's brutal.
It's
crazy days back then.
Yeah. So
crazy days.
So when you really sit down and think, it's like, well, how do we teach this to our kids? Where do we start? How do we explain the New World? Like where because between diseases and wars and stealing and everything where do we start?
Yeah, you can't teach kids that stuff. That's terrible. Yeah. All right. So, what do you love about? What would you like to accomplish with this podcast and enlightening people about Thanksgiving and your studies on this?
Just kind of just give a little bit of an awareness. I like to kind of give an awareness on anything that I learn and I find it maybe a little fascinating. I'm going to go ahead and kind of share it. So if everybody here, everybody listening, my goal really is just to get information out there, lost history, maybe throw it back out there and maybe somebody else can grow on it. Maybe somebody can take what I just delivered
and expand
and do further researching, go do more and then make it even bigger, make it even better. Definitely like to keep everything as truthful as possible. And I know that's hard with different people's accounts and everything, but I try to I say, hey, there's more to it than just this. And that's how this whole story came. Every time I thought I'd put this down, even a week before just last, I was still entering new stories about this.
Awesome. So you're still learning about
I'm still learning about Thanksgiving. Yeah. And between 1700, I mean, there was a lot. I mean, I didn't even touch on this either, but in Plymouth, there was another one a couple years later. A whole nother Thanksgiving, but I think a year later, or they did another one. So, there's several Thanksgivings, different times. I kind of just brought up the important ones or the ones that kind of have some type of significance, because that's the stuff that people kind of talk about more.
Yeah.
And every year the Plymouth one in Jamestown, pretty much, and then the massacre ones. Yeah. So there's about 3 or 4 stories, but Texas and Florida, those states are going to hold their thing too, and they're going to say, hey, we had our first Thanksgiving, and then they have their stories. So like I mentioned, there's a lot of different states that honor it and say, well, no, we're the first people. But technically, I think Texas was the first Thanksgiving with the Spanish.
But weren't you saying something about up north having a first Thanksgiving earlier?
Well, Ponce de Leon did it in Florida. Yeah,
right.
But in 1541, Vasquez de Conrado, they did one near the modern day Texas Panhandle. And there was natives around for that one. But the natives, they're probably looking at the Spanish like, man, these guys are on horses and armor. What the hell am I looking at? They're more probably terrified than wanting to even be,
Yeah, they have to get along with them when they're good.
Yeah, they're seeing it. They hear a gun shot off. Like, what the hell? Wow. You hear for miles.
A gun they probably tripped out on, right? Back in those days. Wow.
Or a cannonball, a cannon. Just boom, you hear that noise. Sure. You're like, what the hell? I've never seen some shit like this,
Yeah, so, for sure.
Yeah.
So whenever you're doing this research that you enjoy, this historian research, what do you hate about it?
Where you think you might got an answer and then you find out it's all bullshit.
No, man. And you did research for like 2 months and then you're like, oh, come to find out this is all bullshit.
Yeah. And there might be somebody's going to challenge something I say too on here and say, he's full of shit here and there.
For sure. But I would like to hear those challenges.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
If you have a challenge for this, he's done his research.
Yeah.
God, I can't speak. He's done his research. If you have a challenge for it, write it in the comments and let's see. And we'll get a back and forth going. Let's go.
Oh yeah, for sure. That's what it's all about. If anybody could be right, anybody could be wrong, right?
Yeah.
But even with research involved, somebody might have something or know a little tidbit that nobody else knows, and that can be a big key to the story.
And I would like to know where they got this tidbit too.
Oh yeah,
for
sure.
Because I mean, like I said, it's hard to know what's real and what's not.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, especially with nowadays, you can create a picture, send it to thousands of people, and now it's all false. And we could be reading that Squanto killed everybody. You know what I mean? Just it could be so twisted. And that's another thing. Stuff gets twisted. And once it gets twisted, sometimes and the floodgates are open, it's the wild, wild west,
Yeah. And social media doesn't help. Anyways.
No. Not too much.
So, what in this life, let's get to know you a little bit.
Okay.
What in this life do you love? What do you love, man?
Ooh, let's see. Family for sure.
All right. Yeah.
Yeah. Family for sure.
Most people say family, and I try to steer them away from that because it's great that you do love family. It's great. Yeah. It's a great thing. And you're supposed to.
Yeah.
But what else in life do you love?
Love mystery. I love mystery and the suspense of certain things. That's what I like. So, so for example, say like the skulls, the crazy skulls down in Peru with something like, that I love stuff like that. Stuff that maybe nobody's even touched or really focused on, or just me digging right into it. That's what I like.
And you study into that.
Yeah.
Okay. So when I was a kid, I think I said this on my last podcast. I wanted to be an archaeologist.
Okay.
And, that would fall right into that. I would have probably, found something like that and got into it and rabbit hole. You know what I mean? So is that what you do? You find something you're interested in, rabbit hole,
and jump right into it. Yeah.
Okay.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
So you remember that mosquito I was telling you about?
I think
he is eating me up, dude. He's the size of a hummingbird somewhere.
I did see him float up. You must have some real good blood, right?
Man, we're in Texas, dude. Texas is like that.
Yeah.
Oh, but that's good, man. That's good that you like that stuff.
Yeah. Other than that, I mean, I played sports growing up, so I played hockey. Come from a hockey family.
Did you hockey?
Yeah.
Man, I like hockey too. We're in the South. There's not very many.
Right.
Much hockey.
Dallas, right? You think you have to go to Dallas? Yeah.
But so whatever. Do you like mystery? But do you like solving the mystery, or do you like when the mystery is solved, or do you like it when it stays a mystery?
I always like when there's a little bit of a mystery to it. You don't want to just completely uncover it all. There has to be a little bit mystique still, because it gets your mind thinking. And I think that's what I like, is like, well, what about this? What about that?
There's so many theories about how this one thing could have happened in history. Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah.
All right. Awesome. So, if I asked your wife, what was your favorite saying? Like you say it all the time. What would your favorite saying be?
Fuck.
Okay. What is it?
Fuck that job.
Fuck that job.
All right, is that
his wife smiled, so I think that was it. So fuck that job.
Fuck that job.
Yeah, I have a great job. I own a gym, so I get to do what I like to do. And every job isn't fun sometimes, but I might have said that before. Fuck that job.
Yeah,
for sure.
That job. Yeah, well, I worked in the government for 12 plus years, so that's when I used to say, So now everything's all good. But after it was some days I get off the phone and they're like, Lord.
Yeah, absolutely. That's every job, though.
Oh, it is. It's But it fed me, so here I am. It's all good. It's all good. It's good.
I explained to people like this. If I had to get up out of bed and walk over 2 steps and press a red button and go back to sleep, and that's my whole job. I got paid enough to survive and everything.
Yeah.
There would be mornings when you woke up and been like, fuck that red button. God damn it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's every job, you got to kind of get through it and try to have a good time while you make enough money to feed your family and yourself and stuff.
I like that. That.
Yeah,
for sure.
Let
me ask you, what's a good saying for you? What's
Oh man, I have a book out. It's called Beecherisms, and it's full. It's about this thick of just really shit talking, I don't know, man. How did I get interviewed? Okay.
Yeah, right. I'm flipping on you.
Check it out. If you asked all my friends, they would probably say go fuck yourself. That's probably my favorite saying.
Fuck you. That's a good one.
But you're from up north, right?
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, born and raised Detroit, Motor City. Shout out Lions.
Barry Sanders.
Yeah.
So look, up north and down here, it's a little bit different than down south.
Yeah.
You have family here though.
Yeah.
So up north, like when I'm in New York with my brother, I walk around and people are talking to you and you're like, go fuck yourself. I'm like, walk off, But if you say that to somebody down here, it's fighting words.
Oh yeah.
Like, what did you say? You want to fight? I go, no, I want you to go fuck yourself. Go that way. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it's way different,
Things in Detroit, that kind of stuff. Yeah, that'll start fights real quick.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
In New York City, they don't care. They're like, go fuck yourself too. Later, see you later.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, New York. Yeah. It's just part. It's part of the living in the concrete jungle over there.
Yeah.
There's so many people living on top of each other. You're on top of me. Get the fuck out of here. Fuck yourself.
it's
for sure.
no big deal. It's like fuck that guy. All right, and I think that's how it should be. Who cares what that person thinks?
I mean, 3 seconds later, you'll never see him again. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
You know what I'm
Absolutely.
saying? Like you can go to jail for a long time over somebody you don't even know. You just don't even.
Yeah. And
try to just steer clear as much as you can from that kind of shit. But like in Detroit, it's similar. Like I would say, like here.
Okay.
There's more action than verbal altercation, I guess.
Well, Detroit is a pretty murderous city.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's one of the top.
Growing up was interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I was born in the mid '80s, but early '90s Detroit was real bad. I mean, I don't know if it was capital murder of the world, but it was up there.
I think it was.
It was. I mean, I'll put it this way: elementary schools, you couldn't wear colors. Just think about that. Grades.
Wow.
Yeah, you got to be careful even wearing colors. Like,
yeah. I heard at one point, I think this was in the 90s or early 2000s, that Detroit had a higher murder rate than Beirut.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah,
dude.
and that sounds like Chicago now.
Chicago, yeah.
Yeah, I mean it's like 4 or 5 people a day. A weekend 20. It's crazy.
Yeah, that's crazy, dude.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So, what do you do now? Do you study this stuff, or do you do it on your free time?
Free time.
Yeah.
Well, currently, right now, I work for Delta Airlines.
Okay.
When I do get my free time, I'm usually digging into maybe some type of book or something, or some journey or where else I can go to. I do like to go, like I mentioned, Ohio, the Serpent Mound. I do like to venture out to some of the stuff.
And you venture out and look at this stuff in person, like Indian stuff and
yeah, no digging. I don't do any digging or nothing like that, just because that's very complicated when you get into findings, that kind of stuff. But what I do is if I see a site, I'll try to say, okay, where's north, where's south? And then I start from there. Once I figure out where north and south is, I might say, okay, well, let's see if there's a marking that might show an equinox somewhere, because I kind of have an idea of where the sun would cross through. That's kind of what I'm into and doing right now. So
have you found anything super cool like that you can tell us about?
Yes. I went to what's called Shell Mound. And Shell Mound's it's in New Jersey. So I went to Atlantic City for they had a horror con there. And on the way there, I found out
like Comic-Con, but horror con?
Horror con. So there was a horror con going on. I was going to check this out. So I flew from Philly to Atlantic City. Before that, I went to a city called Tuckerton. In Tuckerton, there's a shell mound there. It's actually one of the biggest and largest shell mounds in the Northeast Atlantic. And this thing is made up of all shells. It's a complete shell. To give you an idea,
how big is it?
I'd say it's about a good 15 yards long, 10 feet high, 15 feet high, about 5 yards wide.
And it's made out of shells.
Yes.
And what did they make it for?
Nobody knows.
Nobody knows?
Nobody knows.
That's why I asked.
Yeah, nobody knows. So you actually have to walk on a marsh to get there. So I didn't know if you can walk on the marsh. And the marsh is maybe only like 20, 30 yards. And I do have this on my website as well. It's also on YouTube. You can see what I'm walking through. I didn't know. I go to the local library. I go to the police station. Nobody knows nobody knows. Half of them didn't even know what I was even talking about. I was like a crazy ass person just asking about a mound. So I worked up and
so wait. They don't know about this mound, but you know about it. But is it documented somewhere?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. If you there's on my website, I did a little article about it, and I put pictures from the early 1900s and stuff. Now, supposedly they found giants around that mound, not at the mound, but around it.
They found what?
Giant bones of giants. Now, giants. Well,
bones of giant people.
Yeah. Well, there was one set of them that for sure there was somebody maybe about 7 feet tall.
Which back then, people were shorter back then.
Yeah.
And 7 feet back then, it was a giant, literally.
Yeah. So there was bones, and you can go on my website if you guys want to check that out. It's pretty interesting about the giants, but there is pictures of that shell mound going back about 120 years, 100 years, and
what's inside the shell mound?
They did dig it. They
did dig it?
Well, for resources, yeah. Who
dug it?
Well, I went to the Tuckerton Museum, and I found information that they were digging the limestone from it, but I couldn't figure out when. So I don't know. I don't know the time period when they did it, but they did. go ahead and start digging it. There was no bodies found there or anything like that. When I had went there, I wanted to see if it was still shells. That was my thing. Because so I end up getting there. I park on the side of a road. I'm looking at the marsh. It's watery. It's wet. I'm like, shit, I'm going to go down 3 feet into the marsh is not nothing. Don't fuck with marshes, anybody. Let me tell you, it's one thing mess with the swamp. Yeah. You're not coming out. Luckily, when I went, it was at the end of March. April showers had not came yet. So when I went, it was good. I walked over there and I walked on it. There was a little bit of debris and things. I didn't find anything, but yeah, it was all made out of shells.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is interesting. And it's interesting that you go and see it and really check it out, instead of what most people do. I did some internet research, some Wikipedia research.
Well, and to go into answering now what you were asking me. So when I went to Tuckerton, later on I had found out about the earthworks, the geometric shapes of these earthworks that line up with certain star alignments up in the sky and things like that. So I started just poking around. There's a national, I can't think, it's called something national, but it's basically where you can go on the internet and look to see the slopes of land. It's a government website. So when I went, you could see the designs in the ground still in squares, circles, and mounds in certain areas, like wetland areas that are reserved that nobody can go to. And I did see like little islands where there's these earthwork designs. Nobody had even talked about it. No one's mentioned it. I did discover it. I'm still working on something to go ahead and do a press release. I'm also going to see if the city will allow us to do some radio or some type of technology to look to see what it is exactly. But it's
like some kind of like X-ray radio waves. Yeah. I'm gonna get that, dude.
Yeah,
that's that mosquito we're talking about. We're in Texas.
Everything.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. So that's a little bit off of the Shell Mound. So Shell Mound is kind of here, and then a little bit going towards the water. You start seeing in the ground these designs. So
why haven't other people researched this yet?
I think it's something that's newer. There's a gentleman, I believe his name is Ross Hamilton, and he recently came out with a book a couple of years ago about it. He's on Facebook too. You guys can check that out. And he talks about the geometric shapes in these earthworks and how they align with the stars.
Wow.
This is more of a newer thing that's kind of being published and being put out there. And to the flip side, the bad thing, a lot of these mounds are gone. They've been destroyed. Like back in Detroit, where I live, right by where I live, there was hundreds of mounds. There actually used to be a mound that ran for miles, and the mound, it was called Mound Road, is where it was at now in Detroit. Mound Road stretches far, but all those, they're all gone. Evidence of it is completely gone.
Bulldoze it out to make a city.
That, and there was resources. I forgot what resource exactly was along the Detroit River, but there was resources there that they wanted to. Some salts or something, and they dug it all up.
Don't know about the history they're getting rid of, huh?
Yeah.
And something that interests you, damn it, it's gone now.
I mean, you think of like Stonehenge, what if someone just said, let's just move these boulders, they're in the way,
Yeah. And there's probably thousands of things that we don't know about that were just destroyed.
Yeah, it's to me, it's always interesting to see like the Greek and the Greece churches. They got the marble stone, and they dig 10 feet and they find this stuff just sitting there, and it's still perfectly preserved. It's amazing.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. It's super amazing.
Yeah.
That's why I wanted to be an archaeologist. I wanted to discover this stuff. But probably nowadays, most of it's been discovered already.
Or lost.
Lost,
destroyed
by humans.
Yeah. And another thing too, it's such a double-edged sword, I guess, too, in a lot of ways, because you can find something and discover it, and then you have to report it. Now it's not yours no more.
Yeah.
Or you find it, and a Native American tribe say, that belongs to us. I mean, it's gone.
That's true. That's true.
Yeah.
But discovering it and giving it back to a Native American tribe, and then learning about it from them, and it would be interesting as well.
Oh yeah.
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 That would interest you for sure.
If they have the knowledge, and if they really have knowledge, if they're not just trying to take an object too.
You're right. Because
it can go both ways too.
You're right, for sure.
Yeah. But yeah, definitely. If they know the history with it, I'd love to know more about their smoke pipes. That's for sure. I see these pipes that are this long. And tobacco. Yeah, and it's like,
didn't they do like opium and DMT and stuff in there?
I don't know. I mean, I'm sure they probably did, but one thing that a lot of the natives were big on were seeds.
Seeds?
Yeah, they put the seeds in their mouth and do like a.
Seeds from what?
I don't know the exact plant names.
Really?
Pueblo Museum in Utah. No, not Utah.
Pueblo.
Utah. It is Utah, right? Oh, Arizona. Yeah, because it's in yeah. In there they have them. It looks like a little tobacco chew.
Okay.
But it's basically just some string and yarn, and in that yarn are seeds. And they used to put them in their mouths and chew them and do whatever they had to do, walk or.
They were dipping.
Yeah, and they were.
Wow.
Yeah, and that was something that's there at the Pueblo Museum. They have about a good 12 of them, about a dozen of them, of different ones you could see. Yeah.
Wow.
So they were definitely sucking on seeds and getting a little high from it.
Probably. Yeah. And probably tobacco too.
Oh yeah.
I had a dip. I don't know.
Yeah.
So if you didn't work for Delta, what would you do?
That's a good question. I think something entertainment wise.
Entertainment in what
I don't
aspect?
know. I don't know. I don't really know what aspect. Maybe like kind of like what we're doing here now.
Yeah.
But it's just hard to do full time for a living, right?
Yeah.
But I'd like to do maybe something entertainment.
Yeah.
Pretty much my whole life I've served the public, working for Delta and working for the government, but something helping the public. I know that sounds mean. I don't want to help nobody, but
No,
you serve the public for
that's what you
15
do,
years.
So you want to do something opposite.
Something a little bit different. Yeah.
Okay. I'll take that. That's good.
Yeah.
That's a good answer. Yeah. And I just train people, but I help people too. I help.
Well, you're also like you're giving them mental advice. Maybe physical. You're giving them real life advice too. You're coach.
Like more of do what I say, not what I do. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I messed up more than all y'all put together. Probably yes.
but those are those are the best ones you want to hear though.
Yeah.
You want to. I mean, somebody who's went through something that says, look, rather than
don't do this because this is what's going to happen.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I definitely think that's if someone's going to give me some lecture or spiel, I want to hear somebody who went through it.
Yeah.
Not somebody who has an idea or thinks Yeah.
I like that. Yeah. So, what profession would you never ever do? Ever?
I don't think I could be a nurse.
No?
Like the nurse medical field. It's like.
What do you do? Not a nurse? No. Okay.
Yeah. For first you're cleaning people's asses and stuff, but man, it's like you don't know if that person's going to swing at you, let alone you're dealing with blood and needles and all that kind of stuff. And it's like you get somebody mad in the hospital, and I know a lot of people know that one person that's gone ape shit in the hospital. Yeah, they tie you up.
And not only that, I mean, there's so many hard things about being a nurse that it'd be really hard. You're right. Yeah,
and the thing too, they're on their feet working doubles. That line of work, you're working for 3-4 days, you're in and out, you're not there 5 days a week.
Staph infections.
Yeah.
Yeah, all kinds of bad stuff.
Yeah, COVID. I mean,
yeah.
I was recently in the hospital a couple of weeks ago, off subject here. And what I'm going to say now, some of your viewers are going to relate to, but I was pissing out kidney stones.
Oh.
And let me tell you, a lot of men between
it's the worst thing.
Yeah, a lot of men between our ages deal with that kind of stuff. And let me tell you, it's not good.
God.
Anybody has to deal with it, anybody that has those problems, I wish you the best. That shit hurts.
Yeah, I hope I don't have that. Yeah. See that wood or nothing right here?
Yeah, not yet.
Okay, so man, I really appreciate you coming, but I have one more thing. It's kind of a deep one, all right?
Okay.
It's not that deep. So at the end of your life, when it's all said and done, how would you like for people to remember you?
Somebody that was dedicated to the lost history. Somebody that really had a passion for that, and maybe I left a couple things for somebody else to start on. So to go one way, like with my family history that I started, I give it to free to all my family. My second cousins, third cousins, fourth cousins, fifth cousins, and some of my family members are like, why do you give this for free to everybody? I'm like, for one, I don't want the tree to look all stupid. One guy has one thing wrong and then the other guy does, and now it's a big trail effect. And two, it's like it to me, it's somebody can help me build my tree. It's our tree. It's not just my tree.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, why would you keep it to yourself?
Yeah.
Doesn't make sense.
Yeah. So, right. But that's kind of, if I had to say, there's something there for, even my descendants, my family members, there's something like say, well, he he tried to preserve some lost history there, or try to maybe bring some type of awareness that was lost, forgotten, or just so twistedly wrong. And you try to maybe fix it.
Well, you brought me a bunch of awareness about Thanksgiving, and hopefully all my viewers, like all of this stuff. I had no idea. And I don't get into history too much, but I've read things about it, when I was younger, and none of this is really
it was
public record.
Yeah, it was shocking to me. Like I was saying earlier, it seemed like every time I put this down, there was something new. Like, damn, there's another war. There's another killing, and there's again. Like
more massacres.
Then it was like cannibalism. I didn't know about anybody eating each other and all this crazy stuff. Like, whoa. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, man, I really appreciate you coming out here.
Thank you.
And let me tell you guys this. He lives in Detroit and flew out here on 2 days' notice to do this. And it's really awesome that you did that.
I appreciate
it.
I appreciate you.
And what's your website again?
Havsworld.com. It's www.javzworld.com.
And I'll put it in the comments too, and so you guys can just click on it. And then there was something else you mentioned too. You have a YouTube channel?
I do have a YouTube channel.
Does it have a lot of history things in there?
Right now, most of my YouTube stuff ties in with the articles on my website.
Okay.
So if I'm writing a blog and I did a video, like for example, with the Shell Mound, I put the video together of me going and walking to Shell Mound, so I can show you what it looks like to walk on that marsh and go.
Right.
So most of my videos right now they're all tying in with certain articles in my blog. Another video I have that you guys might find interesting is when I went to street karting in Japan. We did Mario Kart in Japan, in Tokyo. That was cool. Let me tell you.
Did they go fast?
Oh yeah. About 40, 50 miles an hour, I would. Somewhere in there, yeah.
That's
you're in the middle. You're in the middle of the street,
Yeah, yeah. Japan's crazy.
Yeah. So, but yeah, most of my YouTube stuff. I'm working on a podcast too. We got some stuff in the works. I got some other videos that we'll be posting on YouTube.
Okay.
Did some caverns. We went caverning to West Virginia and Virginia.
Did you find anything interesting in caverning?
One thing that I found interesting in the cavern, I don't know the particular one at this moment off the top of my head, but there was one cavern that was visited by Civil War soldiers on both sides, and they actually were their names where they engraved them in the cavern, and then a couple months later they were killed in the war, or they didn't survive too much long after that. So I thought that was interesting, to see that was certain people, and it's sad that people have obviously passed away, like they got killed in the war, but just to see that they were there. They put their name in that stone, and a month or two later, that was it.
And it's been there since.
It's been there since, yeah.
Wow, yeah.
So the cavern, that was interesting. Definitely, if anybody out there likes that kind of stuff, caverns is you can definitely let your mind go. They turn off all the lights down there.
Yeah, I've
shit,
been in some in Arizona. I've been in some, and I was a kid, so they were like, "Don't leave the trail because you'll get lost in here and they'll never find you." You know me, I took off running that way. Luckily I didn't get lost,
Yeah.
But I really appreciate you coming. This was awesome, and I hope it's enlightening for everybody. I'm gonna leave your website down here, and if you guys are interested in that and its videos, the YouTube, I'll leave that channel too, and then we'll try to
for sure.
do it.
Sounds great. And I just want to thank all the guests talking shit.
Yeah.
Talking a lot of that with Mr. Beecher. It's been fun. It's been great. Love your setup here.
Thanks, man.
Yeah, wish you the best with everything.
Thanks for flying out, man. You guys, it's shocking, but it's awesome. And I learned a lot.
I learned a lot too. This is great.
All right.
Oh yeah, this is great for sure. We'll do it again.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Dude.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah.
Really good, dude. Like it always shocks me. I mean, people are into different things,
Yeah.
And I mean, I know about fighting. I could talk for hours. A lot of stuff you guys don't know. But that's interesting. Wow. And you probably held out a bunch that I don't even know.
Yeah. I try to just stick to the main stuff because like I said with those memes, man. Around this time, people go ape shit about it, and a lot of them are wrong.